In this video, we explore some of the most horrifying child deaths ever recorded. These heartbreaking and disturbing stories serve as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life. Viewer discretion is strongly advised as we delve into 1 hour of the most tragic and shocking child deaths of all time.
On July 22, 2024, Clodagh Phelan, an 11-year-old girl from County Wicklow, Ireland, was on vacation with her family at the Club Mac Hotel in Puerto de Alcudia, Mallorca, Spain. The hotel is located on the northeast coast of the island. Clodagh stayed with her parents, Liam and Valerie, and her 2 brothers, Will and David. The family had been enjoying their time at the resort, which was meant to be a relaxing break before returning home. That morning, around 6:30 a.m., Clodagh's parents and brothers were still asleep in their hotel room on the 7th floor. Clodagh woke up early and went out onto the balcony of their room. According to reports, she might have leaned over the railing. Tragically, Clodagh fell from the 7th floor of the hotel. She fell 65 feet and landed on the roof of a restaurant below. Emergency responders were called immediately after the fall. Despite their efforts, they could not save Clodagh. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The Spanish Civil Guard is treating Clodagh's death as an accident. They are investigating the fall's circumstances but have confirmed that it appears to have been a tragic mishap. Clodagh was a bright and talented young girl. She was known for her involvement in sports, including athletics, camogie, football, rugby, and hockey. Her love for other activities matched her enthusiasm for sports. She had a passion for music and drama and enjoyed singing and performing. Clodagh was also generous and thoughtful, often buying gifts for her family and friends. Her death has led to an outpouring of grief and tributes from her community. At her funeral at the Holy Trinity Church in Castle Macadam, Avoca, her teammates from various sports clubs and schoolmates formed a guard of honor. Her small white coffin was carried into the church, and mourners paid their respects to the young girl who had touched many lives. Clodagh's mother, Valerie, shared that their hearts were broken into 1,000 pieces. She recalled Clodagh's personality, love for sports, and kind nature. Valerie described how Clodagh would spend hours shopping for gifts and how she was always enthusiastic about school and sports. Her father, Liam, and her 2 brothers, Will and David, also mourned the loss of a beloved family member. Clodagh's school, St. Saviour's National School, where she was a popular and well-liked student, described her as a wonderful, happy student who worked hard. The school remembered her as a great friend to all her classmates and a talented athlete. Her sports clubs, including Parnell Athletic Club, Rathdrum Rugby Club, Clara Ladies Gaelic Football Association, and Wicklow Hockey Club, also paid tribute to her skills and commitment. The local community has come together to support the Phelan family during this difficult time. Many have expressed their condolences and shared their memories of Clodagh. Her tragic death has left a void in the hearts of those who knew her. This event raises some questions about safety in hotel environments, especially concerning balcony safety for young children. What measures could have prevented this accident? How can families ensure that such tragedies do not happen again? The investigation continues, aiming to provide answers and avoid similar incidents in the future. It was July 26, 2017, when Tyler Jarrell and his girlfriend Keziah Lewis arrived at the Ohio State Fair for an exciting day of fun. After spending an extremely taxing morning at her grandfather's funeral, Keziah found the lively and vibrant fair to be the ideal place to unwind. As they wandered through the colorful attractions and bustling crowds, neither of them could have predicted the terrible tragedy that the fireball ride would bring them. Tyler, an 18-year-old Columbus, Ohio, fresh high school graduate, had recently signed up for the Marines. His proud moment of enlisting was captured in a photo he posted on Facebook. The picture shows him carrying a plaque while wearing his Marine Corps uniform. Tyler and Keziah made the decision to end their visit that day by riding the fireball, an exhilarating attraction that swung riders 40 feet into the air while spinning them at high speeds. Little did they know this ride would malfunction disastrously, leading to a catastrophic outcome. At first, everything seemed normal as the fireball began its rotation. However, a sudden, strong shaking disrupted the ride and alarmed the passengers. And then it happened. A whole section of the roller coaster snapped, flinging passengers into the air. Tyler was thrown with such force that he never stood a chance. Keziah, Tyler's girlfriend, was severely injured in the horrifying accident, suffering severe damage to her pelvis, ankles, and ribs. The chaos that followed was beyond description. As emergency responders raced to the site, onlookers watched in shock. But it was too late for Tyler Jarrell, who had died upon impact. The investigation that followed showed that the fireball had been inspected and deemed safe by the Ohio Department of Agriculture a few hours prior to the tragedy. Yet something had gone seriously wrong. Authorities quickly shut down all rides at the fair, and KMG International BV, the manufacturer of the fireball, instructed operators worldwide to cease operations of similar rides. The investigation revealed structural flaws that had gone undetected, raising questions about the frequency and thoroughness of ride inspections. The emotional toll on Tyler's family and friends was immense. Keziah, Tyler's girlfriend, was devastated to hear about his passing when she woke up in the hospital after undergoing multiple surgeries. The town of Columbus, where Tyler was highly regarded and well-loved, mourned the loss of a bright young man whose destiny was snatched away so suddenly. Following the incident, Amber Duffield, Tyler's mother, and other supporters pushed for stricter safety laws. This resulted in the Tyler's Law initiative, which sought to enhance Ohio's safety standards for amusement rides. The purpose of the bill was to make sure that operators are held to higher accountability standards and that rides go through more thorough inspections. As the fair reopened, albeit with a somber atmosphere, and rides temporarily closed, the tragedy left an indelible mark on all who attended. For Keziah, who would never regain full mobility, the journey of recovery was both physical and emotional. Yet she found strength in advocating for safety improvements, hoping to prevent future tragedies.
Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival was a captivating annual music event that took over Houston's NRG Park. This high-energy-filled festival united music fans and Travis Scott enthusiasts for a weekend of epic performances, immersive experiences, and top-notch artistry. Ezra Blount, a 9-year-old boy from Dallas, Texas, was a huge fan of Travis Scott's music. He had been looking forward to attending the Astroworld Music Festival in Houston with his father, Treston Blount, for weeks. On November 5th, 2021, they finally arrived at the festival grounds, excited to see Travis Scott perform live. As the countdown to Scott's performance began, Treston lifted Ezra onto his shoulders, hoping to give him a better view. They stood near the back of the crowd, thinking it would be a safer spot. But as Scott took the stage, the crowd rushed forward, causing a dangerous crush and stampede. Due to this sudden surge, Treston lost consciousness, and when he finally woke up, he realized that Ezra was missing. Panic set in as Treston frantically searched for his son. He rushed to the on-site medic tents and several hospitals, desperate to find Ezra, all to no avail. Eventually, he filed a police report and received a message from an officer with a picture of his boy. At the hospital, Treston discovered that Ezra had suffered severe damage to his brain, kidneys, and liver. He had been kicked, stepped on, and trampled, nearly crushed to death. Ezra's family was devastated by the news. In the days that followed, Ezra's condition remained critical. He was placed in a medically induced coma, fighting for his life. The family held a vigil, praying for his recovery. But one Sunday, 10 days after the incident, Ezra's condition took a turn for the worse. The family's attorney stated that Ezra's death was a direct result of the defendant's negligence and that they would hold them accountable. The lawsuit claimed that the defendants had failed to provide a safe environment for concert-goers, despite knowing the risks associated with large crowds. As the investigation into the incident continued, more details emerged about the lack of safety measures in place at the festival. It became clear that the tragedy was preventable and that the defendants had failed to take necessary steps to protect the attendees, as Ezra was not the only victim of this misfortune. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic, with people screaming and trying to escape the crush. Many reported seeing festival staff and security standing by, doing nothing to help. It was also revealed that the festival had not provided adequate training to its staff, and that there were not enough medical personnel on site. The incident raised questions about the responsibility of event organizers and performers to ensure the safety of their audience. The final investigation revealed that the festival had a history of safety issues, and there had been reports of overcrowding and inadequate security at previous events. It was also reported that Travis Scott had continued to perform for over 30 minutes after the crowd surge began, despite being aware of the danger. This decision was widely criticized, with many calling for Scott to take responsibility for his role in the tragedy. In response to the tragedy, Travis Scott released a statement, expressing devastation over the events of that night and offering prayers for the families and all those negatively affected by the Astroworld Festival. He also announced plans to cover funeral costs, provide further aid to affected individuals, and refund all concertgoers and ticket holders. Yet despite these efforts, the tragic loss of young Ezra Blount's life could not be undone, leaving his family in irreparable grief.
It was April 20th, 2005, in the North Georgia mountains, at the Appalachian Wilderness Camp in Cleveland. Travis Parker, a 13-year-old boy from Douglas County, Georgia, was sent to this state-run camp for troubled youth. Travis had a history of behavioral issues and was on probation after hitting his grandmother, Golden Griffin, and threatening her with a knife. Despite their troubled relationship, Golden Griffin cared deeply for Travis, having adopted him when he was just 18 months old. On this day, Travis confronted a counselor for withholding food as punishment. The counselors decided to restrain him. What happened next led to a tragic series of events that would end in Travis's death and a subsequent legal battle. As the confrontation escalated, 6 counselors, Ryan Chapman, Paul Binford, Matthew Deasing, Torben Vining, Johnny Harris, and Philip Elliott, decided to restrain Travis. Witnesses reported that Travis was held face down by at least 3 counselors at a time. Travis, who had asthma, pleaded for his inhaler, but the counselors did not give it to him. They believed he was not experiencing an asthma attack, as confirmed by an emergency medical technician on site who saw no signs such as wheezing. For over an hour, Travis struggled against the restraint, his breathing becoming increasingly labored. Despite the counselors' claims that they monitored his vital signs, Travis eventually stopped breathing. The situation turned serious and the counselors finally released him, but it was too late. Travis was transported to a nearby hospital where he passed away the following day, April 21, 2005. The medical examiner ruled Travis's death a homicide, caused by positional asphyxia due to the prolonged face-down restraint. This ruling set off a chain of legal actions. A White County grand jury handed down charges of felony murder, child cruelty, and involuntary manslaughter against the 6 counselors. White County District Attorney Stan Gunter stated that the charges were based on the criminal negligence or reckless conduct of the individuals involved. Gwen Skinner, an official at the Georgia Department of Human Resources, which oversaw the camp, said that the counselors were not following agency rules or procedures. "We do not train staff to do face-down restraints," she emphasized. Despite these allegations, the counselors' defense argued that they were following their training. The case against the 6 counselors became a point of debate. Defense attorney Abby Guest, representing Matthew Deasing, insisted that the counselors were doing what they were trained to do. "This is clearly not a case of counselors gone awry," she said. The counselors maintained that they acted in the best interest of the children they worked with and followed the guidelines provided to them. However, the prosecution argued otherwise. DA Stan Gunter emphasized the reckless nature of the restraint and its deadly consequences. The case was set to go to trial, but in a surprising turn of events, White County Superior Court Judge Lynn Akeley Alderman dismissed the charges of felony murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child cruelty against the counselors. Judge Akeley Alderman's ruling was based on several factors. The medical examiner, Dr. Chris Sperry, testified that Travis's death was due to positional asphyxia, resulting from his prolonged resistance during the restraint. Dr. Sperry suggested that had Travis not struggled so intensely, he might not have died. The judge noted that similar restraints had been applied to Travis in the past without fatal results, and that the counselors could not have foreseen the tragic outcome. The judge's decision to dismiss the charges sparked outrage and disappointment among Travis's family and supporters. Travis's grandmother, Golden Griffin, expressed her frustration and sorrow, stating that those responsible for her grandson's death should be held accountable. The family's attorney, Thomas Cuffey, supported this sentiment, emphasizing the need for justice. In response to the incident, the Georgia Department of Human Resources retrained its staff on the proper use of restraints and reviewed its policies to ensure clarity and prevent such tragedies in the future. Gwen Skinner stated the importance of making sure that the guidelines were crystal clear to avoid any confusion about when and how restraints should be used. On June 1, 2024, it was a sunny day in Limerick, Maine. The Morgan family, hailing from Stockholm, New Jersey, was on a much-needed vacation. Jesse Morgan, a pastor, his wife Bethany, and their 4 children were spending quality time together at a lakeside cottage. The vacation was meant to be a time of rest and bonding, away from their busy lives back home. Lucy Morgan, their 6-year-old daughter, was full of life. She loved Chick-fil-A, drawing, dancing, soccer, and spending time with her family. Lucy was also curious about her faith, and had recently asked her mother, Bethany, how to be with God and be saved. Bethany had explained it to her, and Lucy, in her characteristic independence, wanted to pray on her own. She later journaled about her newfound faith, expressing her love for God in words and pictures. On that day, the Morgan family was enjoying a peaceful afternoon. They were eating a quick lunch by the lake when the children decided to play badminton in the front yard. The youngest, Lucy, was sitting on the sidelines, excitedly watching her siblings. Jesse and Bethany were relaxing in the back when they heard a sudden scream. Rushing to the front, they discovered a horrifying scene. In a freak accident, the aluminum shaft of a badminton racket had broken off its wooden handle and pierced Lucy's skull. The sharp piece had caused a catastrophic brain injury. Lucy was still breathing but unresponsive. Jesse and Bethany held their daughter, crying to God for a miracle. Limerick Fire and Emergency Medical Services arrived quickly, and Lucy was transported to a local hospital before being airlifted to Maine Medical Center in Portland. Doctors at the medical center removed part of Lucy's skull to relieve the pressure on her brain. Despite their efforts, her condition wasn't stable. Lucy's brain functioning had essentially ceased, and it was unlikely she would ever recover. The Morgans were told to prepare for the worst. They spent the next few days in a state of incomprehensible pain, hoping for a miracle but bracing for the inevitable. Jesse documented their harrowing journey on his blog, sharing the family's struggles and their faith. On June 4th, the morning of the day Lucy was predicted to pass, Bethany's cries of pain were heard through the hospital, reminding her of the day she gave birth to Lucy nearly 7 years ago. The pain of a mother losing her child was indescribable. The Morgans faced the heartbreaking task of explaining the situation to Lucy's 3 siblings. 8-year-old Shiloh broke down immediately, unable to imagine life without her sister. 4-year-old AJ clung to his parents, asking endless questions in his typical style. 10-year-old Silas tried to be strong, but eventually broke down, declaring that he didn't want to be a family of 5. As the days passed, the Morgans found comfort in their faith and the support of their extended family and church community. They sang Lucy's favorite hymn, "He Will Hold Me Fast," at her bedside. On June 5th at 1:32 a.m., Lucy was declared brain dead. A few hours later, her heart stopped beating. Returning home to New Jersey was another ordeal. The family arrived to find their steps lined with flowers and a fridge stocked with food, but entering their home was one of the hardest things they had ever done. They sat on the front steps crying together, before mustering the courage to go inside. Once inside, they collapsed on the kitchen floor, overwhelmed by grief. Amid their sorrow, they discovered an unexpected gift. Lucy's prayer journal, given to her a month before her passing, contained her heartfelt prayers and drawings. The final entry was a picture that Shiloh believed depicted Mary and Martha weeping over the body of Lazarus, a reflection of Lucy's understanding of faith and resurrection. This discovery comforted the grieving family, affirming Lucy's deep, though childlike faith. The family's ordeal did not end with Lucy's passing. Jesse continued sharing their journey on his blog, reflecting on their pain and efforts to find light amidst the darkness. The community rallied around them, raising over $135,000 through a GoFundMe campaign to support the family. As they went through their grief, the Morgans clung to their faith. Jesse's blog posts were raw and honest, detailing the family's attempts to cope with their loss. He wrote about the gold at the bottom of a deep, dark well, finding evidence of God's grace in the small mercies they experienced. Despite their sorrow, the Morgans found moments of joy, remembering Lucy's laughter and love. Lucy's funeral was held on June 15th at Green Pond Bible Chapel in Rockaway Township. It was live-streamed for those who couldn't attend. The service celebrated Lucy's life and faith, showing her impact on those around her despite her short time on Earth. On July 31st, 2023, a tragic accident occurred at Okanagan Lake Provincial Park near Summerland, British Columbia. The Backer family, consisting of Keith and Sky Backer and their 4 boys, enjoyed a camping trip. Among them was 3-year-old Cash Backer, known for his curious and gentle nature. Cash loved helping others and made a new friend on this trip, the daughter of Ruveen Stogren. The Backers were an outdoorsy family, and even though Ruveen was new to camping, she felt at ease with them. The kids played together, enjoying the fresh air and the beautiful scenery. Cash was particularly excited. He even helped Ruveen's daughter put on her shoes before they went to play, showing his kind nature. The day was supposed to be filled with fun. The campground was busy with families enjoying the lake and nature. However, this peaceful scene turned into a nightmare. Around mid-morning, a tragic accident occurred near the campsite. A rotten tree at the family's campsite unexpectedly uprooted and fell, striking Cash Backer. Ruveen Stogren, who was at the camp playground with her daughter, heard the screams. Her husband, the second person on the scene, called out for her, knowing she was a nurse. Cash's mother, Sky, was the first to reach him. The trauma of the incident was so intense that the details were a blur to those who witnessed it. Ruveen rushed to the scene and immediately took over CPR from those who had started it. Despite their best efforts, it was clear the situation was dire. An ambulance was called, and Cash was quickly taken to Kelowna General Hospital. The paramedics did everything they could, but the injuries were too severe. Cash died shortly after arriving at the hospital. The news was devastating. The vibrant little boy, full of life and curiosity, was gone. The incident was described as a freak accident. The log that shifted and fell was part of a tree already on the ground, possibly weakened by rot. It was an unexpected and tragic event that shocked the Backer family and their friends. Ruveen, who met Cash for the first time on this trip, was deeply affected. She described him as one of the sweetest little boys she had ever met. He was curious, kind, and always eager to help. His loss was unimaginable. In the days following the accident, the community supported the Backer family. A fundraiser was set up to help cover funeral expenses and support the family during this difficult time. So far, it has raised over $35,000, showing the community's support and compassion. The goal is to reach $50,000, allowing Keith, the sole income earner, to take time off work and be with his family as they grieve. British Columbia Parks officials have started an investigation into the incident. Typically, dangerous tree assessments are done every spring before the parks open. Certified assessors look for trees that pose a risk and assess their potential for failure. It is still determined if the log that struck Cash was part of these assessments. The investigation aims to provide answers and ensure the safety of park visitors in the future. The Backers are now left to deal with their immense grief. Their lives have been changed forever. Ruveen, who has worked in emergency rooms and dealt with trauma before, described the incident as the worst she had ever seen. The efforts of everyone at the campsite to help, both physically and emotionally, were profound. Yet the pain remains unbearable. The Port Coquitlam community, where the Backers live, has also shared their condolences. Mayor Brad West expressed his heartbreak over the news and urged people to donate to the fundraiser. He emphasized the unimaginable pain of losing a child and the importance of community support during such times. The story of Cash Backer is a tragic example of how quickly life can change. He was a sweet boy, full of curiosity and kindness. His family and friends cherish the memories of his short but impactful life. As they grieve, they are surrounded by a community that shares in their sorrow and is determined to support them in any way possible. It was March 24, 2022, and Tyre Sampson was visiting Icon Park in Orlando, Florida, during his spring break. At 14 years old, Tyre was a football player. His trip to Florida was supposed to be a joyful escape with family friends, but it ended in tragedy. Tyre wasn't your usual 14-year-old. He was the kind of young man who stood out. At 6 feet and 5 inches and 383 pounds, Tyre was also known for his friendly personality and gentle nature, which had earned him the nickname Gentle Giant. Tyre was a promising football player and an intelligent student with a bright future. On March 24, 2022, Tyre was visiting Icon Park, a popular entertainment complex which boasts over 50 attractions. That day started out with Tyre and his friends going on various rides. However, Tyre's size led to him being turned away from two due to weight restrictions. At some point, Tyre decided to ride the Orlando Free Fall, a towering drop ride that had opened only 3 months prior. At that point, the Orlando Free Fall was the world's tallest freestanding drop tower, rising 430 feet and plummeting 400 feet at 75 miles per hour. But Tyre didn't feel that excited about this particular ride. He felt something was amiss. He felt uneasy about the harness that seemed too small for his stature. A chilling photo taken just before the ride shows Tyre with the harness appearing unsecured. He even told a friend that the harness was moving and asked the friend to tell his parents that he loved them in what seemed a foreboding premonition. As the ride began, a video captured the horrific events. Tyre slipped from his seat. The boy tried to cling to the seat, but it was no use. He fell to the ground, a scene that left onlookers and friends in stunned silence. Emergency services quickly arrived, but Tyre was pronounced dead at the hospital. An autopsy later revealed that he died from blunt force trauma with multiple severe injuries. Following the event, the Orlando freefall was shut down right away, and the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, as well as the Orange County Sheriff's Department, started their investigations. According to forensic experts who discovered that the sensors on Tyre's seat had been manually modified, the ride had continued to function even though there was a dangerous space between Tyre's seat and harness. This modification gave the misleading impression that the safety mechanisms were engaged. Tyre's weight also surpassed the ride's 286-pound weight restriction by 96 pounds, which was a critical oversight. Tyre's parents claimed that Tyre was never informed about the weight limit in a wrongful death case they filed against the owner, manufacturer, and landlord of the ride. On August 17th, friends and family gathered to celebrate what would have been Tyre's 15th birthday, releasing balloons and praying in his memory, in an effort to stop similar tragedies in the future. State Representative Geraldine Thompson declared her intention to introduce the Tyre-Sampson Law, which would strengthen security protocols at theme parks. Tyre's death was both unusual and avoidable, Thompson emphasized. It was revealed in March 2023 that Tyre's mother, Nekia Dodd, has reached a settlement with Icon Park and the Orlando Eagle Drop Slingshot, the owner of the freefall ride. However, the case against the ride's manufacturer continues. A jury trial date has been set for January 21, 2025 in Orlando. The trial is estimated to last 2 to 3 days. It was April 11, 1996 in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Jessica Dubroff, a 7-year-old girl from Falmouth, Massachusetts, was attempting to set a record as the youngest pilot to fly across the United States. She was accompanied by her father, 57-year-old Lloyd Dubroff, and Joe Reed, a 52-year-old part-time flight instructor and full-time stockbroker. They were in a Cessna 177B, embarking on a journey they called the Sea to Shining Sea flight, an ambitious 6,900-mile trip from coast to coast. Jessica's journey began on April 10th, departing from Half Moon Bay, California. They planned to reach the East Coast within 8 days, making numerous stops for media interviews. Lloyd Dubroff, who acted as the publicist, created a packed itinerary filled with early morning interviews and long flight hours. The family had received significant media attention, and Jessica's story was captivating the nation. She was often seen in videos sitting on a booster seat in the cockpit, using rudder extensions with both hands on the yoke, guided by Reed's instructions. Jessica's father, Lloyd, was the driving force behind this endeavor. Despite not having a pilot certificate, he planned the route and managed the media engagements. He aimed to make Jessica a national sensation, handing out Sea to Shining Sea baseball caps and recording the journey for ABC News. However, the flight was overloaded, and Lloyd's ambitious schedule left little room for rest. On the morning of April 11th, the weather in Cheyenne was deteriorating. A thunderstorm was approaching, bringing heavy rain, gusting winds, and hail. Reed, despite his fatigue from the previous days, decided to press on to stay on schedule for media commitments. The aircraft, already overloaded, faced additional challenges from the high-density altitude of Cheyenne, approximately 6,670 feet. Reed had logged 1,484 flight hours, mostly along the California coast, with limited experience in high-altitude flying. Jessica had about 33 hours of flight instruction with Reed, but the idea of her being the sole pilot was more of a publicity stunt than reality. Even before the crash, the Federal Aviation Administration and Guinness Book of Records had expressed concerns about promoting unsafe flying in pursuit of records. Witnesses at Cheyenne Regional Airport saw the Cessna struggle to gain altitude after taking off from runway 30. The aircraft barely climbed above 400 feet and then began to turn right. Moments later, it plunged nose first into a residential street, about 9,600 feet from the runway's end. The impact was severe, and all 3 occupants were killed instantly, The crash site was a horrific scene. The nose section and forward cabin were crushed, and the fuel from the wings spilled out, though there was no fire. The NTSB investigation revealed that Reed had been at the controls during the crash, and the plane had been flying in challenging conditions: strong winds, rain, hail, and low visibility. The aftermath of the crash led to significant public outcry and legislative changes. Former President Clinton signed the Child Pilot Safety Act, which prohibited unlicensed individuals from attempting to set records or engage in aeronautical competitions. This law aimed to prevent similar tragedies by ensuring that only qualified pilots could operate aircraft in such contexts. On June 28, 2019, a tragedy occurred at Summer Kids Camp in Altadena, California. Doug Forbes and Elena Matias dropped off their 6-year-old daughter, Roxy Forbes, at the camp. It was Roxy's first camp experience. They had been assured that Roxy, who was a beginner swimmer, would stay in the shallow end of the pool and wouldn't need a life jacket. Despite these assurances, Roxy somehow ended up in the deeper part of the pool, about 20 feet away from the shallow steps. The water there was much deeper than she could handle. Roxy was found floating face down in the pool by a counselor from another group. The camp staff, including 4 lifeguards, had not noticed her struggling. Emergency responders arrived, but Roxy was in full cardiac arrest. She was taken to the hospital, where doctors declared her brain dead. She was taken off life support the next day. This tragic event was witnessed by 30 to 40 other children at the camp. Roxy's parents were devastated. Doug Forbes said he would never forget the scream his wife let out when she saw Roxy being taken away by ambulance. The sight of their daughter, who had been a lively and bright child, now blue and unresponsive, was something they could never erase from their minds. Roxy's death was a result of inadequate supervision and failure to follow safety promises. In the wake of their daughter's death, Doug Forbes and Elena Matias have been fighting to ensure no other family experiences a similar tragedy. They discovered that day camps in California, unlike in 40 other states, have little to no regulation. There is no licensing board, no oversight, and the state doesn't even track the number of camps or the children who attend them. The California Department of Social Services investigated Summer Kids Camp and found that it had been operating without a necessary license. The camp has never had the appropriate license, which is required for most child care facilities in California. Summer Kids Camp started the license application process after the incident, but as of the report's publication, the agency had not yet received a complete application. Despite decades of operation, the camp had not followed the licensing requirements. Additionally, the camp is not accredited by the American Camp Association, which sets standards for camp safety. Roxy's parents have filed a lawsuit against Summer Kids Camp, alleging negligent hiring, retention, supervision, and training practices. They are also suing the American Red Cross for fraudulently certifying counselors as lifeguards. The lawsuit aims to hold the camp accountable and to highlight the need for stricter regulations and oversight. In response to this tragedy, State Senator Anthony Portantino introduced a bill that would require day camps in California to be licensed and monitored by local health departments. This bill includes guidelines for CPR training for lifeguards, criminal background checks for all counselors, and proper staffing requirements. Portantino acknowledged that there might be pushback due to the financial implications of these regulations, but he emphasized the importance of preventing future tragedies. Doug Forbes and Elena Matias have also started the Meow Meow Foundation in Roxy's honor. The foundation focuses on water and camp safety. They have launched Roxy's Wish Drowning Prevention Week for children and are working to bring drowning prevention education into local schools. Their foundation also provides free swim lessons for kids, aiming to make water activities safer for all children. Roxy's parents continue to grieve their loss, but they have chosen to fight for better safety measures to protect other children. They hope that their efforts will prevent other families from experiencing the same heartache they endure every day. On June 5, 2019, tragedy struck at 8 p.m. in Kruger National Park, known for its wild beauty. 2-year-old Courtney Netamun, a little boy filled with laughter and curiosity, found himself in the clutches of a nightmare that would haunt his family and the park for years to come. Courtney's father, Isaiah Entemain, was a hard-working man, spending his days as a water operator within the park's sprawling expanse. His wife, Sabine, often brought their son to visit him, turning his simple cottage into a haven of love and laughter amidst the rugged terrain. On the day of the tragedy, Isaiah returned home from work, eager to spend time with his family. Ever the adventurous spirit, Courtney followed his father's footsteps, his tiny hand clutching a toy truck as he explored the world around him. As evening descended, Isaiah settled into the routine of family life, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond the safety of his doorstep. Courtney, drawn by the allure of the wilderness, went outside in the night, his innocent curiosity leading him into a world of danger. Suddenly, the evening shattered with the sound of a mother's screams, echoing through the darkness like a cry for help. Isaiah rushed outside, his heart pounding with dread, only to find his worst fears realized. In the grasp of a leopard was his beloved son, his cries for help drowned out by the predator's roar. The leopard bit Courtney's neck and body repeatedly, his cries and screams getting louder as he could feel the pain course through his tiny body. Isaiah acted in sheer terror, his every instinct screaming to protect his child at all costs. With a courage born of desperation, he confronted the leopard, his hands shaking as he fought to free his son from the jaws of death. As the struggle raged on, Sabine joined the fray, her screams blending with Isaiah's as they fought tooth and nail to save their precious son. Isaiah managed to drive the leopard away with a final desperate effort, but the damage had already been done. In the aftermath of the attack, Courtney lay battered and broken, his tiny body bearing the scars of a battle fought and lost. With tears streaming down their faces, Isaiah and Sabine rushed their son to the hospital, praying for a miracle that would never come. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, Courtney succumbed to his injuries, his tiny heart beating its last as his parents looked on in agony. In the wake of his death, Kruger National Park was plunged into mourning, its vast expanse of wilderness overshadowed by the specter of loss and grief. After the brutal attack on Courtney, the rangers and park staff searched for the leopard, where the animal was considered a danger to humans and had to be killed immediately. The park rangers successfully located the leopard and shot it, ending the threat of it harming other people inside the park's premises. As the days turned into weeks, questions lingered like ghosts, haunting the minds of all who sought answers in the wake of Courtney's tragic demise. How had a leopard managed to breach the park's defenses? What measures could be taken to prevent such a tragedy from occurring again? Some speculated that human encroachment into the leopard's natural habitat had emboldened the animal. In contrast, others pointed to the inherent risks of living and working near wild predators. Beyond the tragedy of Courtney's death lies a story of a vibrant young life cut short by the merciless whims of nature. Courtney was not just a victim. He was a beloved son, a cherished family member, and a bright spark in all who knew him. His laughter and smile, once a source of boundless joy, now serve as bittersweet memories cherished by those who loved him most. On July 4, 2012, 15-year-old Tyler Madoff, a high school junior from Scarsdale, New York, went on a kayaking and hiking trip with Bold Earth Adventures in Kealakekua Bay, Hawaii. The adventure was intended to be a thrilling, safe experience for Tyler and 11 other teens. Unfortunately, the trip turned tragic when Tyler was swept out to sea and presumed dead. Tyler was known for his athleticism and academic excellence. He played football, captained his school's crew team, and was a junior lifeguard. This trip was supposed to be a highlight of his summer, a $500 adventure his parents believed would provide leadership skills and unforgettable memories. Instead, it ended in a heartbreaking loss. The group, led by guides from Bold Earth Adventures and Hawaii Pack and Paddle, had been kayaking in Kealakekua Bay, a state historic park known for its snorkeling and dolphins. Outside the permitted zone, the teens were directed to relax in tide pools near the Captain Cook Monument. The guides assured the group that the tide pools were safe. However, they overlooked warnings of dangerous surf conditions. As the group rested, powerful waves unexpectedly surged into the tide pools. Tyler and another teen were swept away. The jagged lava rocks and violent waves created a dangerous situation. The guides managed to rescue the other boy, but Tyler was not so fortunate. Witnesses reported that Tyler was thrown against the rocks and then pulled into the ocean. A massive search effort involved the U.S. Coast Guard, Hawaii County Fire Department, and residents. They used scuba divers, helicopters, and boats, but the search was called off after several days. Tyler's body was never recovered. The incident sparked outrage and grief. Tyler's parents, Michael and Marianne Madoff, were devastated. They accused Bold Earth Adventures and Hawaii Pack and Paddle of negligence. According to the lawsuit filed by the Madoffs, the guide showed poor judgment by taking the teens to an unauthorized and dangerous area. The lawsuit also emphasized that the trip leader, Andrew Mork, had a history of marijuana-related convictions and had been previously kicked out of a bar in Hawaii. Deborah Ward, a spokesperson for the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources, confirmed that the area where the group was taken was outside the authorized landing or trail area allowed by the permit. This violation, combined with the failure to heed surf warnings, formed the basis of the Madoff family's wrongful death lawsuit. The Madoff family's attorney, Susan Carton, emphasized that the decision to file the lawsuit was not about money, but about accountability. They wanted to ensure that no other family would endure such a tragedy. The lawsuit sought punishable damages for negligence and infliction of emotional distress. In court, Loretta Sheehan, another attorney for the Madoff family, argued that Bold Earth Teen Adventures failed to train its leaders properly. She pointed out that Mork's background check should have revealed his marijuana convictions, making him unfit to lead a group of teenagers. The court ruled that the case should proceed in Hawaii, where the incident occurred, rather than Colorado, where Bold Earth is based. The tragic death of Tyler Madoff raised questions about the safety and oversight of adventure tours in Hawaii. Jim Howe, an ocean safety expert, noted that tour companies hire guides new to Hawaii and need to gain knowledge of local conditions. He called out the need for thorough safety training and adherence to guidelines. Despite the lawsuit and subsequent legal battles, the Madoffs focused on the hope that their son's death would lead to stricter safety protocols and prevent future tragedies. In 2014, the lawsuit was settled for an undisclosed amount. Marianne Madoff expressed that the loss of their son forever broke their family. The state revoked Hawaii Pack and Paddle's permit, citing multiple violations, including exceeding the maximum time per landing, deviating from the authorized area, and exceeding the number of guests allowed. However, this action came too late to save Tyler. On June 28, 2008, Asia Leishon Ferguson IV arrived at Six Flags Over Georgia with his friends from Okie Springs Baptist Church. His parents, Asia Ferguson III and Letha Ferguson, were also on the trip. It was a Saturday, a day meant for thrills and fun, but it would soon turn into a tragedy that no one could have anticipated. Asia, a 17-year-old from Springfield, South Carolina, was an outgoing, carefree adolescent who was often grinning and eager to lend a hand to others. Among his friends, he was well known for his academic success and for his intense love of basketball. Asia and his friends excitedly toured the park on that fatal day, their laughter resonating across the rides and attractions. They were drawn to one of the park's most popular roller coasters, Batman, the ride. The ride was renowned for its high speeds and 360-degree twists, promising an adrenaline rush unlike anything else. Amidst the excitement, however, Asia and a companion ended up separated from the group and wandering into an area forbidden to the public. It is still unclear why Asia chose to jump over two 6-foot barriers that were marked with authorized personnel only and do not enter signs. Some people think he was attempting to find a hat he misplaced during the trip, while others think he was attempting to enter the ride or use another route to the parking lot. Whatever the reason, what he did took him into a dangerous area beneath the roller coaster's track, a place of extreme danger when the ride was operating. Around 2 p.m. that afternoon, Asia was hit by one of the ride's speeding trains, which was moving at almost 50 miles per hour. The impact was lethal, decapitating the 17-year-old instantly. Witnesses stared in shock, not understanding how the scene had gone from happiness to disaster so quickly. A nearby Marietta police officer who was off duty called for assistance right away. But even though park security and rescue services responded quickly, nothing could be done for Asia, who was pronounced dead at the scene. The subsequent investigation sought to piece together the events preceding Asia's untimely demise. Officials at Six Flags highlighted the multiple warnings and barriers put in place to stop these kinds of things, pointing out the obvious signage and fenced-off sections. Asia's death was deemed an accident by the Cobb County medical examiner, who verified that the cause of death was blunt force trauma. For Asia's family, the loss was incomprehensible. His father, heartbroken and seeking answers, spoke of his son's infectious happiness and the bright future that had been stolen from him. Friends mourned the loss of a boy who was always ready to lend a hand, recalling moments shared on the basketball court and in the classroom. Six Flags Over Georgia temporarily closed the Batman ride out of respect for Asia's family, while state officials ordered a thorough inspection of the attraction. The park faced scrutiny and potential legal challenges, as the incident highlighted the balance between thrill-seeking and safety. Even more, state regulators decided the park had to increase the size and number of warning signs near the ride in order to prevent others from suffering the same end. On July 15, 2022, an incident occurred on Anderson Island, Washington, involving a 13-year-old boy named Daryl DJ McCutcheon Jr. DJ was attending a summer camp organized by the town of Steilacoom. The campers were taken to Florence Lake, where DJ, who had never swum in open water before and was not wearing a life jacket, drowned while trying to swim towards a platform about 30 to 40 feet from the shore. On that day, a camp employee left DJ and other teenagers unsupervised at the lake while he went to pick up another group of children and a co-worker from a nearby ferry station. During the employee's absence, DJ went underwater and did not resurface for about 6 minutes. Bystanders eventually noticed DJ's distress and attempted to rescue him. Ernest Roberts, a passerby, spotted DJ about 10 feet underwater, pulled him to the surface and started CPR. DJ was then airlifted to Mary Bridge Children's Hospital, where he was pronounced dead later that day. Following this tragedy, DJ's parents, Tamisha and Daryl McCutcheon Sr., filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the town of Steilacoom. They claimed the town was negligent in supervising their son. The McCutcheons' attorneys argued that the camp failed to provide proper water safety training and did not ensure the children were supervised at all times, as required by the town's staff training manual. The manual stated that campers should always be under staff supervision during program hours. The lawsuit revealed that DJ's mother, Tamisha, had signed a waiver accepting risks, including injury or death, from participating in activities near water. However, the McCutcheons' legal team argued that the waiver was a generic release form and did not specify situations where children would be taken to open water. In response to the lawsuit, the town of Steilacoom agreed to pay a $15 million settlement to DJ's family in April 2023. This amount represents more than half of the town's annual budget of $24.5 million. The settlement funds are expected to come from the town's insurance. Paul Lovelace, Steilacoom's town administrator, and Amanda Queen, the town's attorney, declined to comment on the case due to ongoing litigation. The final dismissal paperwork had not yet been filed. The McCutcheons, who had moved to the South Sound area in 2019 after being stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord, described DJ as their miracle baby due to years of struggling with infertility. After DJ's death, the family relocated to the Midwest to be closer to relatives. Despite their immense loss, the McCutcheons plan to use the settlement money to start a nonprofit dedicated to promoting aquatic safety at summer camps and to create scholarships in DJ's name. Brett Rosen, one of the McCutcheons' attorneys, emphasized that the lawsuit was about seeking justice for DJ and preventing similar incidents in the future. The McCutcheons hope that by advocating for better safety measures, other families will not have to endure the same tragedy. On August 7, 2016, Michelle and Scott Schwab of Kansas took their 4 sons to Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City. It was Elected Officials Day, the one day of the year when the park offered free entry to elected officials and their families. As it happened, Scott Schwab was a Kansas state representative. The kids were more than thrilled at the prospect of spending a day of fun on the water slides. Out of all of them, Caleb, the couple's 10-year-old son, was perhaps the most excited. But what was supposed to be a day of joy turned into the worst possible scenario for any family. At that point, Schlitterbahn was a wonder, mainly because of its main attraction, a water slide called Verrückt, which means insane in German. The water slide had an impressive height of 168 feet and 7 inches, which at least at that point made it the tallest water slide in the entire world. Verrückt was the creation of Jeff Henry, the co-owner of the water park, who had designed the water slide himself. With such a promise of fun, it was only natural that 10-year-old Caleb Schwab was eager to ride Verrückt. Verrückt, as tall and towering as it was, had no age restriction, despite the fact that a consultant had previously recommended an age limit of 16. As such, Caleb and his older brother, 12-year-old Nathan, were able to experience the ride. Caleb and Nathan let their parents know they wanted to go on Verrückt soon after the family arrived at the park. Scott, their father, asked the 2 boys to stick together for the day. Caleb agreed, then eagerly headed off with his brother. These would be the very last words father and son exchanged. The brothers ascended the 264 steps to the top of Verrückt. Nathan was the first one to get into one of the waterslide rafts and experience the ride, with Caleb impatiently waiting for his turn at the top of the waterslide. Then it was Caleb's turn. Nathan waited for his brother at the bottom of the slide. The ride featured 2 drops, the first being a 17-story plunge. Riders occupied 3-person rafts, each weighing 100 pounds, and were required to have a combined weight of no more than 550 pounds to prevent the rafts from lifting off the slide. When it was Caleb's turn to go down the slide, the boy was seated at the front of Raft B with 2 women behind him. Caleb weighed only 73 pounds, far less than the 2 women, an important factor in the tragedy that was just about to play out. It all happened so fast. As the raft sped down the chute and over the first hill, it went airborne on the second hill. Caleb was thrown against the netting designed to prevent riders from being thrown from the ride, striking a metal pole. The young boy was decapitated instantly. Witnesses below watched in horror as Caleb's body descended the chute, leaving a bloody trail on the slide. To make matters worse, Nathan, Caleb's older brother by 2 years, saw the entire tragedy unfold. He screamed in terror, saying his brother flew from the slide. Michelle Schwab, the boy's mother, desperately tried to reach Caleb, but she was stopped by other witnesses who knew the sight would be too devastating for any mother. The boy's father, Scott, repeatedly asked if his son was dead. Scott was in shock. When he heard that Caleb was indeed dead, he was overwhelmed with grief. As emergency services attended to the other women on the raft, the Schwab family was left to grapple with their immense grief. Returning home in a daze, questions arose about how and why Caleb had died. An investigation into the incident provided some answers to the devastated family. First off, there was the matter of Caleb and his weight. His being seated at the front of Raft B created an uneven weight distribution. To top things off, other information seemed to point to Raft B having a tendency to go abnormally fast and airborne, far more often than other rafts. Even more, safety concerns had plagued Verrückt from the start. Verrückt was designed by people with no background in mechanical engineering. As such, it was created with the use of trial-and-error methods and not engineering practices. During testing, it became evident that the ride had severe issues, with rafts frequently going airborne and the ride proving dangerously fast. Videos of sandbags flying off rafts during testing went viral before the ride opened, prompting co-creator Jeff Henry to claim the ride was safe dangerous. Despite warnings from an engineering firm about the ride's hazards, it opened to the public with riders going airborne and hitting the netting. Caleb's tragic passing prompted other park visitors to come forward with their own stories of the ride. As it turned out, some 13 riders suffered injuries such as concussions and slipped herniated discs. In early 2017, the Schwab family settled with Schlitterbahn and other parties for approximately $20 million. Verrückt was dismantled, and the Kansas City park closed on September 3, 2018. In March 2018, Jeff Henry, along with 2 other individuals, were indicted on charges including second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter, but the charges were dropped the following year due to alleged illegal evidence. It was July 6, 2023, at the Smuggler's Notch Resort in Vermont. Tate Holtzman, a bright, energetic 3-year-old, was attending his first day of summer camp at the resort. His parents, Zachary and Jennifer, had enrolled him in the day camp program, hoping he would enjoy the activities and make new friends. The family lived locally, and Zachary even worked at the resort, which they all loved. On that sunny afternoon, Tate and his camp group arrived at the resort's Notchville Water Park, a popular attraction featuring multiple pools and a splash pad. As the children played, Tate fell and scraped his knee. Counselors walked him to a picnic table near the splash pad to clean his leg. Once his wound was tended to, they told him to rejoin the other campers on the splash pad. As Tate started walking back, something unimaginable happened. He stepped on what looked like a solid plastic lid in the grass. The lid, supposed to cover a 3,500-gallon cistern, flipped in the air. Tate disappeared into the dark, water-filled hole below. Counselors screamed for help, and lifeguards from nearby pools rushed to the scene. The hole was the entrance to an underground water storage tank, 12 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 6 feet deep. The lifeguards and counselors immediately began rescue attempts, diving into the tank to save Tate. The tank's depth and the swirling water made their task incredibly difficult. Lifeguards could only stay submerged for 15 to 20 seconds at a time, desperately trying to locate the boy in the pitch-black water. Minutes ticked by and the situation grew more dire. One lifeguard thought he felt Tate with his foot but couldn't grasp him. Finally, someone brought a flashlight, revealing Tate's small, motionless body floating in the water. They pulled him out and began CPR. Emergency medical technicians arrived and took over, rushing Tate to the University of Vermont Medical Center in Burlington. Zachary and Jennifer received a call from the resort, informing them of an accident involving their son. They raced to the camp, following the ambulance to the hospital, their hearts filled with dread and confusion. 2 days later, despite the best efforts of the medical team, Tate succumbed to his injuries. The chief medical examiner's office determined the cause of his death was drowning, and the manner of death was ruled an accident. The Holtzmans were devastated. Tate was their only child, a boy full of compassion, kindness, curiosity, and a love for adventure. They could not fully understand how such a tragedy could occur. Their grief was followed by questions about how this preventable accident happened. Why was the lid to the cistern not secured with bolts? Why were there no danger signs? How could such an obvious hazard be left unaddressed in a place frequented by children? Investigations into the incident began immediately. The Vermont Occupational Safety and Health Administration conducted a thorough review and found multiple safety violations at the resort. The lid, designed to be held in place with bolts and marked with danger signs, was neither secured nor marked. Employees working on the tank couldn't recall if the lid ever had bolts, and it was found lying in the grass beside the hole on the day of the incident. VOSHA fined Smuggler's Notch $31,000 for 6 serious labor safety violations. The fines were later reduced to $22,000 after the resort took corrective measures, such as replacing the cover, adding danger signs, and changing employee procedures. Despite these actions, the resort's CEO, Lisa Howe, expressed uncertainty about why the bolts were missing, stating, "We'll never know why the bolts weren't in the place where there were holes for the bolts." The Vermont State Police also conducted an investigation, but no criminal charges were filed. The police report confirmed that the tank's lid was never bolted down as it should have been, leading to Tate's fall and subsequent drowning. As the investigations unfolded, the Holtzmans sought justice for their son. They hired a Boston attorney, Jennifer Denker, who specializes in wrongful death claims. Denker stated, "This was a preventable tragedy caused by an incredibly dangerous product lacking certain available safety features, made all the more dangerous by its improper installation and lack of warning." She indicated that the family might pursue legal action against potentially liable parties, including the manufacturer of the cistern lid. The Holtzmans' grief was profound, but their determination to prevent similar tragedies from happening to other families was strong. They started a petition to replace the resort's splash pad with a memorial garden in Tate's honor. By January 18, 2024, the petition had gathered over 1,000 signatures. Additionally, nearly 1,000 people donated more than $101,000 to the family through an online fundraiser. The resort implemented several safety improvements following the incident. The splash pad area was closed for the rest of the season, and a locked fence was installed around the cistern. The rubber lid was replaced with a heavy metal one that would take multiple people or machinery to lift. Below the lid, a new grate was installed to prevent anyone from falling in, even if the lid was removed. The resort also hired a company to evaluate potential safety hazards and recommend further improvements. Despite these changes, the Holtzmans remained vigilant. They wanted to ensure that no other family would have to endure the pain of losing a child due to unsecured water tanks or septic systems. Their attorney, Denker, emphasized their determination, saying, "They want to ensure no other family is subjected to the devastating loss of a child due to unsecured water tanks or septic systems."